spreading some ryegrass with a DJI drone. It's an agras T40, and we're spreading over cotton that's just been defoliated actually today. It's still got the leaves on it, but the chemical has been applied to it, and we're just spreading the ryegrass over it. And I'm flying it. It's flying autonomously, but I'm overseeing the controller and the drone, and you have to be in visual sight line of it by FAA regulations. This is the controller. You can see the drone. You can see the camera. It's kind of hard to hold everything with one hand, but there's a map here. Excuse me. The map there shows our coverage area, what we've covered, what we've spread, and there we go. Spreading ryegrass seed, and like I said, it's going down into the cotton. They anticipate some rain on day after tomorrow. This farmer has 100 acres that he wants to turn cows out on. So he wants this ryegrass to come up as quickly as possible. They'll come in and pick this cotton over the next few weeks, and whenever they get done picking the cotton, they can turn the cows out on it as soon as possible. It's turning on its own. It's turning around. It's flying. You can see it's coming down that road, and it's doing it on we walked it out and saw how far it will throw the seed. It's throwing the seed about 29-30 feet. Pretty good coverage area. So it's every 30 feet it's making a swath across there. We're putting out 32.25 pounds per acre. The farmer wanted 33 pounds, and that's just as close as I could get it, was 32.25 in the calibration, which I think's pretty good. And the coverage area right there, you can see the seed. It's pretty evenly distributed across the coverage area. It's gonna run out of seed here in just a minute. It's got 10 pounds left, so it's got about 1/3 of an acre. It's gonna turn around on that other end. It's gonna take off and come this way. And as it comes this way, it's going to run out, and it's going to mark that on the map on the controller automatically. I'll bring it back. Actually, it returns to home on its own, so it'll return to home, which is where I landed it last. I'll fill it up.
Paused.
Up.
Spray tank empty.
It says spray tank empty, but
spray tank empty.
We're going to hold the home button.
Hovering. Return to home. RTH.
It's returning to home right now on its own.
Task complete.
It says task complete, but we completed 1.7 acres on 68 pounds. So we may actually turn it down just a little bit, turn the desired weight. There it is right there. It's going to fly right over to the trailer. It's going to turn the way I had it turned. It's gonna land. Now all I have to do is fill it up. I'm gonna turn the generator off so you can hear. I'm gonna fill it up with ryegrass and change the battery out. it's important not to lean on this tank. It has scales underneath it that measure the weight, and you don't want to mess up those scales by
Aircraft
putting weight on
disconnected.
it. It's going to turn back on. It's going to turn back on. It's going to connect to the remote, and then I'll be able to take off and go again. The generator charges the batteries because we're out here away from any power grid.
Fasten all arm locks securely to prevent potential safety risks.
Look at the coverage on the hood of it.
Obstacle avoidance enabled.
So that's the kind of coverage you can expect at there you go. That's the kind of coverage you can expect at the settings we have right now, which is I'm shooting for 23 pounds per acre, and that's probably some calibration I need to sort out. And our disc is spinning, our rotation on the spinner is 1300 RPM. Flight speed is 23 feet per second. That's gonna be really close to 16 miles an hour. And we're at 12.1 feet above the crop. So this thing kind of sets itself up.
Takeoff.
Whenever you put in the desired amount, it'll tell you what's capable. You tell it what you want it to do, and it's going to tell you. So if I put in it, I want it to fly at at 30 feet spacing. Well, it's going to work out the field on how many swaths there are across the field. And I told it I wanted to be at 29 feet because that's about what I stepped it off at, and it come back and told me like 29.4 feet because that's how many swaths you can get across the field where it won't have like a half a pass where it's doubling over. So the height and the speed of the drone determine your coverage area as well. With any aircraft, like crop dusters, helicopters, your speed across the ground and the rotor wash, or from the airplanes, the downforce of the wings, all that comes into play to how far wide you can actually cover. Anyway, back to it. So what I did is I moved closer to where it's actually operating, and it flew autonomously while I was observing it, and I moved the truck and trailer forward to keep up with it. And not every field has a access road where you can do that. But whenever they do have a road kind of through the middle of them and kind of where you can catch the drone going in either direction for refills or battery swaps, whatever you need to do, it's ideal. If you don't want to fly a whole bunch of deadhead time, meaning not actually applying seed or a chemical mixture. Here it comes again. Spreading that ryegrass. I mean, what we're doing here, it really is for the cows. I mean, farmers really do have their best interest of the environment in mind, regardless to what people believe. Some people believe they really do a lot for the ground, things that optimize their yield and their livestock growth, but it wouldn't increase their growth or their yield if it wasn't good for the plant or the animal or the land. It's coming back by. It's actually about to run out.
Spray tank empty.
There it is. It run out. So I'm gonna have to, since I moved, I'm going to have to bring it in and land it manually, because if I hit return to home, it would go back down to the part of the field where we were at before. It's kind of a dusty job. Are you okay? You can really see. I think that's a really good demonstration of how much air that thing moves. Payload on it is about 110 pounds. It's 50 kilograms, so 2.2 times 50. If my math worked out right, I think that's 110. Plus the dry tank or the wet tank. So if it didn't have a dry or wet tank on it, those probably weigh about 5 pounds apiece. So you're probably looking at 115 to 118 pounds. And air temperature also affects that. Not greatly, but it definitely affects. There it goes. It definitely affects battery efficiency. The cooler it is, the longer the batteries last and more acreage you can cover on a battery. I'm only using about 30% of a battery, 35. On these fill-ups at Rye Grass is really, really light. It's that hopper all the way full is only about 60 pounds. Those bags are not as heavy as they look. I have a herniated disc in my back, and this is about the limit of what I can do. It's about 35 pounds without causing any more medical problems. But yeah, rinse and repeat until you get done. They've got, they want to cover 100 acres because this rain's coming in and they need grass for the cows. It hadn't rained in over 2 months. Everything's super dry. Hay fields are not growing hay. They have silage. This farmer grew silage for their cows, and if it hadn't been for the silage, they may have run out of feed. Really, really dry. It's coming by one more time. doing its thing. Again, you have to stay in a line of sight, and you have to observe it. It is flying on its own, but you have to make sure that it's not going to fly over any kind of occupied buildings, dwellings, automobiles, cars, anything like that. And you have to keep it in the line of sight per the laws and regulations. All right, I'm going to get back to work.
Spray tank empty. Paused. Spray tank empty.
Bonus points if you can figure out what I was listening to. So what you saw there turn the generator off just for a minute, just because we're trying to get 2 loads on the battery, and if I can do that, it gives me like 12 acres between. Really need to crank the generator up, which being out here in the middle of nowhere, you would think a little bit of some noise would be welcome, but that just dull generator noise running constantly is more of a pain in the butt than it is anything. That's the reason for the noise canceling headphones. So if you wanted to know what it takes to get started doing something like this, it takes you have to have a commercial drone pilot's license. You have to have a quick card, you have to take a test, and then for chemical, you have to have a commercial applicator's license in the state that you live in. For seed and fertilizer, you just need a drone license. I've been playing with my rates up and down a little bit. I don't think I'm going to get a full load out of 2 batteries, just because it had to fly so far before it got started actually spreading.
Low power alarm.
That's at 30%. It's set a little bit higher than what actually is low power. And I did that, the minimum on the DJI setup is 20% that alarm comes on. And I turned it up to 30 so that in the case that I wasn't looking directly at the remote for a second or two, but you see there's other things going on, it's not just, it'd be perfect, in a perfect world you could just stand here and look at this, right, but we don't live in a perfect world. So there's other things going on, swapping batteries around, rubbing seed bags, and if you don't have everything staged up kind of close, your efficiency is not going to be good enough for it to make any money, never get anything done. So it's down to 22%. Got 10 pounds left in the back in the hopper. I'm going to stop it right there and bring it home. If you fly it home manually, it flies faster. Because you're flying it manually, so you should be watching it, right? Whenever it's flying, I can hit the home button, it'll fly back here and land. But it has to do so at the rate which, like 23 feet per second. I can fly 32, 33 feet per second manually.
Task complete.
2.1 acres, and we got 52 pounds out, and we're shooting for 33 pounds per acre, so kind of messing with it. I went through the calibration when I was one, I'm not really.
Aircraft disconnected. Fasten all arm locks securely to prevent potential safety risks. Home point recorded. Upward obstacle avoidance enabled.
Today I got 70 acres of ryegrass to spread with a drone. And this is a fenced-in field that summertime they use for cotton. And this cotton's been defoliated, but the leaves aren't off of it yet. And go ahead and spread the ryegrass over top of it. By the time they pick the cotton, the ryegrass will be growing, and they can turn the cows out. And they can start feeding. What that does is it gives you a couple weeks head start on the grazing. Because in years past you had to wait for the cotton to get out, come in, plant it, and then you start growing your grass, right? So this way they get, a week and a half, 2 week head start with, they can turn their cows out in this field earlier and therefore effectively using their ground better. I'm gonna show you what it's like, what all gonna do. About to take off.
Aircraft preparing for takeoff. Stand back at a safe distance.
So I've already spread 35 acres, 36.1 acres actually, and it knows where it left off at, and it goes back to that exact spot where it left off at, picks right back up, and just continues until it finishes the field. It'll just continue working, going back and forth. We're applying 33 pounds per acre on this ground because it is row crop ground. If it was permanent pasture, we'd be doing 50. I'd be doing 50. It's pretty far away, or I would turn the camera around and just kind of let you see what's going on. But I don't think the GoPro would pick it up. It's currently 1,300 feet away from me. It won't take long. It'll be back. back for a refill. This is how everything is controlled right here. I can view the camera. You can actually even turn it underneath and look at the material coming out just to make sure everything's alright. That's the camera. It's on a gimbal. You can see your percentage that it's open right now. It's got scales on board, and you can see the weight. You can see the weight coming out of the hopper. Flying at 23 feet per second is my target, 12 feet high. And this ryegrass is pretty light, so we're flying 21 foot swaths, I believe is what it is. It's not going to show me there. And then 1300 RPM on my spreaders underneath there. It's going to turn, and it's going to do everything. It's doing all this autonomously. If I said that word right, it don't come out real good sometimes. And it will actually return back to the trailer right by itself. But I like to manually land it just because putting a couple inches one way or the other, it kind of matters. Kind of tight spaces, you don't want to be driving around the whole airport behind you. Try to make it as compact as possible. Getting down to 19 pounds. I see it getting closer to us. I'm not sure if you can see it, but it's right there. About ready to come back. So I landed on a trailer. Refill it. It gets about 1.8 acres per load. About 65 pounds of seed in there per load. Just because ryegrass is not very dense, it's kind of light. So all that being said, 65 pounds per acre, I mean not per acre, 65 pounds per hopper, shooting for 33 pounds per acre. And most every time I do the math on it, it'll tell me how many acres it covers, just to make sure we're getting the right one. At least every third load, I'll get a calculator out and punch the numbers, make sure everything's good. And we're putting 2 different varieties in there. I don't know if you could tell that. And I narrowed the swath width up, so we're only covering, like I said, 20 feet. Pretty good bit of overlap. But this customer wants 2 different varieties. And that's the best way I can figure out how to do it, is pour one bag of one, pour a bag of the other, and alternate back and forth on which bag goes first, and then have a pretty good bit of overlap. That's the best thing I can do, other than having like a big mixer and pouring all the seed in there and then filling up out of that mixer. I don't know of any better way to do it. We just do the best job we can do. All right, then.